There are moments in life when everything seems to fall apart at the same time. Bills pile up, opportunities disappear, people begin to doubt you, and sometimes, even you begin to doubt yourself. The story of the pursuit of happiness is not just about money or success. It is about persistence when circumstances are humiliating. It is about holding on to dignity when life gives you every reason to let go. Chris Gardner was not lazy. He was not careless. He was simply trapped in a season of struggle. A season where effort did not immediately match reward. A season where survival came before dreams. That is what makes this story powerful. Because most people quit during that season. Imagine working every day while knowing your bank account is empty. Imagine chasing an opportunity while sleeping in public restrooms with your child. Imagine trying to stay hopeful while the world quietly closes doors. That kind of pressure reveals character. Chris did not have certainty. He did not have comfort. He did not even have stability. What he had was belief, not loud belief, not dramatic belief, but quiet determination. He showed up to an unpaid internship while being homeless. He studied when he was exhausted. He smiled in interviews while carrying invisible weight. That is discipline beyond motivation. Motivation would have faded quickly in his situation. Excitement would not survive that level of stress. What carried him was consistency and a refusal to surrender his vision. There is a powerful moment in the story where he tells his son, "Don't ever let somebody tell you you can't do something. Not even me." That line is not just advice to a child. It is a reminder to himself. Because doubt does not only come from others. It comes from inside. And when life is hard, that inner voice becomes louder. But he chose to guard that voice carefully. He did not allow temporary failure to define permanent identity. He understood something crucial: circumstances are temporary, but mindset shapes trajectory. This is why the movie resonates deeply. It shows that happiness is not handed to you. It is pursued, not in comfort, but in discomfort. Not when everything is easy, but when everything feels uncertain. The word pursuit is important. Happiness is not guaranteed. It requires movement. It requires risk. It requires staying focused even when results are invisible. Chris did not win because he was lucky. He won because he did not stop. He kept making calls. He kept studying. He kept showing up, even when no one was applauding. That is the real lesson. Success does not arrive when conditions are perfect. It arrives when your commitment survives imperfect conditions. Most people underestimate the emotional strength required to stay composed during humiliation, to be rejected repeatedly and still return the next day, to fail publicly and still believe privately. That is courage. And courage, practiced daily, becomes unstoppable. The pursuit of happiness teaches that growth often looks like struggle before it looks like success. That stability often comes after seasons of instability. That breakthroughs are usually built on invisible persistence. It reminds us that temporary pain does not cancel long-term possibility. And most importantly, it shows that sometimes the greatest victory is not money. It is proving to yourself that you did not quit. Because when everything is stripped away, money, comfort, stability, approval, what remains is your decision to continue. And that decision shapes who you become far more than any external reward ever could. There is something powerful about enduring a season that could have broken you, not because suffering is romantic, but because survival builds strength you cannot borrow from anyone else. Chris did not just pursue a career, he pursued self-respect. Every day he showed up to that internship without pay. He was reinforcing one message to himself: I am still in this. That reinforcement matters. When life becomes difficult, your mind looks for evidence. Evidence that you are capable. Evidence that the struggle is worth it. Evidence that you are not wasting your time. And every time you continue despite exhaustion, you create that evidence. Most people quit not because they are incapable, but because they grow tired of uncertainty. Uncertainty is uncomfortable. It makes you question your choices. It makes you doubt your direction. It makes the future feel unstable. But uncertainty is also where growth lives. In the movie, Chris faces rejection repeatedly, interviews that could change his life, conversations that determine whether he can move forward. And in those moments, he cannot afford to collapse emotionally. He cannot afford to let frustration show. He must remain composed. That composure is not luck. It is control. Emotional control under pressure is a rare skill. It separates those who react from those who respond. Reacting is easy. Responding requires discipline. Chris responded. He responded by studying harder, by using every spare minute wisely, by refusing to let embarrassment silence his ambition, by protecting his son from the full weight of his stress. That protection is another layer of strength. Even when he felt overwhelmed, he chose to remain hopeful in front of his child, not because he was pretending everything was fine, but because he understood that leadership sometimes means carrying weight quietly. This is what makes the pursuit meaningful. Happiness was not a gift waiting for him. It was something he had to move toward daily, even when progress was invisible, even when circumstances felt humiliating, even when doubt whispered that it might never change. He kept moving. Movement creates momentum. Momentum builds belief. Belief strengthens identity. And identity shapes destiny. By the time success finally arrived, it did not feel sudden. It felt earned. Earned through nights without comfort. Earned through mornings without certainty. Earned through discipline when motivation would have been impossible. That is the deeper message. You do not wait for motivation in survival mode. You rely on commitment. You rely on responsibility. You rely on the quiet voice inside that says, one more day of trying, one more day of effort, one more day of refusing to quit. Over time, those days accumulate, and accumulation creates breakthrough. The pursuit of happiness reminds us that the most important victory often happens before the visible one. The moment you decide that quitting is not an option, something shifts internally. You stop negotiating with fear. You stop debating with doubt. You start acting with intention. That shift changes everything. Because when quitting is removed from the equation, progress becomes inevitable. The timeline may vary, the struggle may continue, but the direction is fixed. And direction matters more than speed. Chris did not control when success would arrive. He controlled whether he would be ready when it did. That readiness is built through consistency in the hardest moments. And when the final scene arrives, when effort finally meets reward, the emotion is not just relief, it is recognition. Recognition of every silent sacrifice. Recognition of every decision to continue. He did not just gain a job. He gained proof. Proof that perseverance works. Proof that dignity can survive hardship. Proof that commitment outlasts circumstance. And that proof changes a person permanently. Because once you survive a season like that, you no longer fear difficulty the same way. You know you can endure. You know you can adapt. You know that struggle does not define your future unless you let it. That is why this story resonates beyond the screen. It is not about wealth. It is about resilience. It is about refusing to let temporary conditions dictate permanent identity. It is about understanding that happiness is not something you wait for. It is something you pursue patiently, consistently, and without quitting. Because the truth is, most people do not fail because they lack talent. They fail because they stop during the hardest chapter. They mistake the middle of the story for the end. They interpret delay as denial. They let temporary pain convince them that permanent success is impossible. Chris's journey shows something deeper than ambition. It shows endurance. Endurance is not loud. It does not announce itself. It simply continues when continuation feels unreasonable. It keeps going when results are invisible. It chooses long-term possibility over short-term comfort. There is a specific kind of strength required to endure humiliation without losing vision. To walk into interviews knowing your life is unstable, to study when you are exhausted, to stay hopeful when logic suggests fear. That strength is built in silence. Silence where no one applauds you. Silence where no one sees your effort. Silence where quitting would be understandable. But understandable does not mean necessary. He understood that quitting would not remove the struggle. It would only remove the possibility of change. Continuing preserved possibility. And sometimes, possibility is enough to keep moving. This is what patience truly means. Patience is not passive waiting. It is active persistence without immediate reward. It is waking up each day and choosing the same direction, even when the path is unclear. Consistency is similar. Consistency is not perfection. It is return. It is showing up again after rejection. It is adjusting after mistakes. It is protecting the vision even when confidence feels thin. And refusing to quit is not about pride. It is about identity. Once you decide that you are someone who continues, your behavior begins to reflect that identity. You recover faster from disappointment. You interpret obstacles differently. You stop asking whether you can and start asking how you will. That mental shift changes outcomes over time. In the story, the victory scene is emotional not because of the job itself, but because of everything it represents. It represents every night without comfort, every call that was ignored, Every doubt that was confronted privately. It represents a man who chose endurance over surrender. That is why the pursuit matters. Happiness is rarely found accidentally. It is earned through resilience. It is built through disciplined thinking and consistent action. It is shaped by the refusal to let temporary hardship define permanent worth. Most people see success and assume confidence created it, but often, confidence is created by survival. When you endure something difficult and come out stronger, belief becomes rooted in experience. Experience is powerful. You no longer rely on hope alone. You rely on proof. Proof that you can survive uncertainty. Proof that you can adapt. Proof that your effort, sustained long enough, produces change. That proof quiets fear. It reduces comparison. It strengthens focus. And it makes future challenges less intimidating. The pursuit of happiness teaches that the journey itself builds the person capable of holding the reward. If success had arrived too early, before the growth, it might not have lasted. The struggle shaped the capacity to handle opportunity. Capacity determines sustainability. When your capacity grows, your opportunities expand naturally. You do not panic when responsibility increases. You do not crumble under pressure. You have been tested already. And testing builds resilience. Resilience builds confidence. Confidence builds freedom. Freedom allows you to pursue happiness without desperation. That is the full circle. Happiness is not something you chase blindly. It is something you grow into, through patience, through consistency, through the decision not to quit when quitting feels easier. And once you understand that, struggle stops feeling like punishment. It feels like preparation. Preparation for a version of yourself that does not exist yet, but is slowly forming through pressure. Preparation for responsibility you cannot yet see. Preparation for stability that requires strength you are still building. When struggle becomes preparation instead of punishment, your mindset changes completely. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this building in me?" That question creates power. Because every difficult season shapes something. It shapes patience when outcomes are delayed. It shapes humility when pride is challenged. It shapes discipline when comfort disappears. And those qualities are not visible at first. They grow quietly, beneath the surface, like roots strengthening before a tree can rise higher. In the movie, we see visible hardship. We see homelessness, rejection, exhaustion. But what we don't see as clearly is the internal growth happening simultaneously. The sharpening of focus, the deepening of responsibility, the strengthening of belief. That inner growth is what made the outer success sustainable. Without preparation, opportunity overwhelms. With preparation, opportunity feels deserved. This is something many people misunderstand. They want success without the season that builds capacity. They want breakthrough without breakdown. They want arrival without endurance. But preparation is what makes arrival meaningful. When you survive uncertainty, you learn how to manage fear. When you survive rejection, you learn how to separate identity from outcome. When you survive instability, you learn how to value structure. These lessons cannot be rushed. They are earned. And earning them changes how you carry yourself. Chris did not just earn a job. He earned resilience. He earned confidence rooted in experience. He earned the ability to look at future challenges without collapsing. That is preparation. Preparation turns desperation into discipline. Instead of reacting emotionally to every obstacle, you begin responding strategically. Instead of chasing validation, you focus on improvement. Instead of fearing delay, you use it to refine yourself. Refinement makes you sharper. Sharpened focus reduces wasted effort. Reduced wasted effort increases impact. And impact compounds over time. When struggle feels like preparation, quitting loses its appeal. You understand that leaving early means leaving growth unfinished. Staying means allowing the lesson to complete itself. Completion builds strength. And strength builds trust. Trust in yourself. Trust that even if today is heavy, it is shaping tomorrow's capacity. Trust that even if progress is slow, it is steady. Trust that even if recognition is absent, development is happening. Development is often invisible. No one sees the internal adjustments you make. No one sees the habits you refine. No one sees the mental battles you win quietly. But you see them. And that matters. Because when success finally arrives, it does not surprise you. It feels like the natural result of everything that came before. It feels aligned, not accidental. Preparation ensures that when opportunity meets you, you are not intimidated. You are ready. Ready to handle pressure. ready to make decisions wisely, ready to maintain what you have earned. That readiness is the true reward of the struggle. The pursuit of happiness reminds us that the hardest seasons are often building something we cannot yet recognize. They are not obstacles to happiness, they are part of the path toward it. And when you begin to see your struggles as preparation, you stop resisting them blindly. You endure them with purpose. You move through them with patience. You grow within them consistently. Until one day, you realize something powerful. You are no longer the person who started the journey. You are stronger, clearer, more capable, and ready for what comes next.